High Velocity Wrestling is a professional wrestling promotion based in Western North Carolina. HVW's events provide a family atmosphere featuring old-school pro wrestling with a modern-day flair, giving a little something for everyone. Hey, what is up? Welcome to the HVW Podcast, the official podcast for High Velocity Wrestling. I'm your host, Tom Clark, and we're here to give you the latest HVW news, exclusive interviews, and some fun pro wrestling conversation. Please remember to follow us on all of our social media, including Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The links are available in the episode's description. What's up, kids? Welcome to the podcast. It's been a couple of weeks since we have brought HVW back to the masses here on the Facebook. We took a week off last week due to Thanksgiving holiday. Hope you and yours had a tremendous turkey week, turkey day, week, season, whatever the case may be. Yes, I had turkey last week. I ate twice in the same week. For those of you who know me, you know I've been on a weight loss kick. For the past several weeks, I have lost 22 pounds and counting, my friends. So, yeah, man, the goal is 50. Once I get to 25, I'll feel better. Halfway, yes. But last week, I did eat Thanksgiving twice. Yes, I did have some turkey. Listen, man. Listen, when in Rome. You know what I mean? So, you got to enjoy the turkey. I may have had a slice of pecan pie as well. It's not Thanksgiving without it. Actually, it's not Thanksgiving without pumpkin pie. That I did not have. I behaved myself, folks. What can I tell you? So, yes. Hope you guys are doing great. Happy Tuesday night to you all. We tried to get the word out about an hour or so ago to let you guys know that we were going to do this here tonight. We've got a couple of folks watching here tonight so far. Barry Seals, how are you, my friend? Thank you very much for the kind words. If any of you guys are watching on my Facebook page, if I'm not addressing your comments, there's probably a pretty good reason for that. I probably can't see them. So if you will jump on over to the HVW page, then I can see your comments. You know what that means? If I see them, I can answer them. So there you go. I don't want to leave anybody out to dry. So not only did we not do the HVW pod last week, I also did not do the main event last week, but it's all good. As I said, took a week off for the holiday season. We did, however, drop a new episode of the 6M podcast last Tuesday. So if you guys are into a lot more than just the pro wrestling conversation, then you perhaps will enjoy Tom Clark's 6M podcast. We focus on movies, Marvel, music, magazines, miniseries, and more. I could have just called it the More podcast because everything technically falls under the More umbrella. But it was a cheap way to get a 6th M in there, if I'm being honest. So, yes, we've had great response to that podcast. We appreciate everybody who has subscribed and downloaded. We'll let you guys know right now that the 6M podcast, Tom Clark's Main Event, and the HVW official podcast are all available on Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and the YouTube. There you go, kids. Everywhere that you enjoy podcasts, for the most part, you're going to find those 3 shows. So we are expecting the HVW owner promoter, Mr. Gary Benfield, to join us here shortly. He's on the road right now, should be getting home anytime in the next few moments or so. And as soon as he shows up, we will pop him on the screen here and go from there. In the meantime, let's do a little something here. We were talking earlier about what we could talk about tonight. So we have decided to discuss world champions. It was Gary's call, asked him if he had any ideas, and he threw this to me. I'm like, that's a great idea. We're going to get the ticker ticking across the bottom. We're going to let you guys know. We're going to remind you right up front, if you haven't heard the news, yes, we are planning our return January 30th, 2021 with Resurrected. As you guys and gals know, we did return to action January 25th, 2020 with Resurrected. That was our return to the business, to the sport, after a 6-year hiatus. And we were firing on all cylinders. We had a great show that night. We carried that momentum into February with First Strike, another great show. I had a blast both nights. Fun stuff to be had all the way around, not just by the talent in the back, by the fans who were in attendance and the fans who have watched since then. We received nothing but praise for both shows. And yes, it was good fun, great fun, actually, if I'm being honest. And then 2020 happened. I saw a meme today that said today marks the 5th year anniversary of 2020. Marks 5 years that we've been into. It's the truth, man. Longest year ever. But let me tell you something, kids. It's going to be okay. This too shall pass. I take a very zen attitude towards life. I try to. It's not always the easiest thing because if any of you guys know me, you know I can be a bit high-strung when I want to be. So there's that. So let's see who else we got checking in here. Dylan says, we got to start the topic of world champions. The first, Dylan, I've already got Buddy on the ticker here, or on the to-do list here tonight. Yes, as I said before, Gary Benfield should be here shortly, so everybody just hold on for that. Gary will hang out with us. We're going to go ahead and get this conversation started. He'll be sorry he missed this one. I'm going to start with the man. The man I believe is the greatest of all time. Now, for any of you fans older than me, you may dispute this. For any of you fans younger than me, you may dispute this. It's okay. You all can be wrong. You can be wrong together. Hold a big parade. Carry signs. We was wrong, yo. Guess what? It's all good. It's all good, man. I'm just playing. Everybody relax. I believe that the Nature Boy is the GOAT. I believe he's the greatest of all time. And it's how I feel. I've not seen anyone come since him that would make me believe otherwise. But this is my opinion. However, it's not just one guy's opinion. This is the opinion of a lot of other fans out there all around the world, actually, that Ric Flair is indeed the greatest of all time. So I hold to that. That's my belief. That's where I'm coming down from. It's hard to start anywhere except the top, if I'm being straight with you. So Flair, to me, in my opinion, is the greatest of all time. So, Ryan, what's up, brother? To be the man, you got to beat the man. Absolutely. See, Dylan says, I don't dispute this. I agree. Flair is the best. Yeah, better be in everyone's top 3, no doubt about it. Thomas, what's up, man? Yes, sir. I agree with that. I was in Charlotte the night that he came out when he was on the road to WrestleMania that coming year against Shawn. When he made that speech, I will never retire. That was fun. We popped like mad. Because everybody kind of thought he was going to hang it up right there. That's the vibe we were all getting. And when he said, I'm gonna tell you right now, make this announcement, I will never retire. And man, people lost their ever-loving minds. Yours truly included. So I have told this story multiple times in the past, but I'll tell it again because why not? My first memory on this planet was of going to see a pro wrestling show with my dad. And I remember 2 things. By the way, I'm probably age 2. This is circa 1975, okay? I remember maybe 3, so maybe it was 76. Something like that. I remember 2 things about the show. One was Wahoo McDaniel's headdress, and the other was Ric Flair's robe. And I vividly remember both of these things. And keep in mind, I'm being held. I got memories as a kid being held that my mom doesn't remember. Okay. That's the truth. So he made an impression on me at a very young age. My dad watched pro wrestling all the time. I've told this story before too, over the years. we were never a football family. We weren't a baseball family. My dad wasn't in the NBA, didn't care much for baseball. We were a pro wrestling family. So the only sports we ever had on my TV at my house was pro wrestling. NWA was on. Whenever NWA was on TV, it was on our TV. You know what I'm saying? My dad didn't much care for WWF. At that time, I don't think WWF had national television anyway. We were probably years away from Vince taking over and calling the shots and all that good stuff. But yeah, man, we always had Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling on. Anything Jim Crockett related was on TV. 6:05 Saturdays on the Superstation, of course, classic. That's the stuff that was on my TV all the time. Shane says the most underrated world champion is Jerry the King Lawler. Shane, dude, you're hitting me square in the mouth with that one, brother. I can't argue with that too much at all. What's up, Chris? How you doing, my friend? The Greek Wolverine is here, my friends. Ric Flair was great, but not the best. He only did his style and was never able to adjust to a different style. I'm not going to disagree with you. It's hard for me to debate a pro wrestler on another wrestler because I don't have the ego that allows me to do that. So I completely see where you're coming from, completely. And again, I'm not going to debate you, dude. I'm not. Out of sheer respect, I won't do it because I think it's silly. You know what I mean? If you were just a fan, I would debate you maybe. No point. I can see where you're coming from totally. I completely understand. Who do you think, Chris, by the way, Chris Fix, who do you believe is the best? Your opinion. I'd love to hear who you think. By the way, I can totally see where you're coming from. And if there's ever been a knock on Flair over the years, that's been one of the knocks on Flair is that he worked his style and his style alone. You know, to read Flair's book, he kind of said the same thing about Bret Hart. Said that Bret had a pattern of moves that he had to do. He had to do that pattern in that sequence, in that order, every single night without fail. And if he couldn't do them, he was irate. So he would force the situation a lot of times. So I guess it just depends on what side of the coin you're coming from. So Dylan says, I'll share my first wrestling memory. See, 2 world champions having a match at a pay-per-view called Backlash, Goldberg versus The Rock. That was your first memory? Oh, my God, Dylan, are you like 12? What's going on, man? Oh, my God, I'm so old. Really? Dude, that was big, dude, when Goldberg came to WWE, man. That was big. No doubt about it. So, all right, guys. Well, we've got the boss is here. He's watching. He's making sure I'm doing everything right. So let's get the boss in the mix, get his take on the Nature Boy, and a whole lot of other stuff. So here we go, kids. Here he is. Owner promoter of HPW.
What's up, guys? Sorry, man.
No worries.
Just trying to do the life thing, you know?
Oh, I hear you, man. Life beckons.
I was listening on my phone as I was driving in, so I heard what you guys were talking about.
Yeah, Crucifix hit. Go ahead. Crucifix hit us with an interesting take on Flair when he said that Flair was very good, but not the best because he didn't really adjust anyone else's style. You being a wrestler yourself, what's your take on that?
You know, I may have to agree with Chris on that, Tom, because, you know, Flair was very much like, you know, you come in the ring, do it my way. You know, I'm not adjusting my style. You know, Hogan was the same way. You know, you had to come in and work with Hogan. He wasn't working with you. Right.
And I also made the comment to Chris that in Flair's book, he kind of said the same thing about Bret Hart, that one of his biggest criticisms against Bret was that Bret was so mechanical that Bret had to do the same sequence of moves every single time, and that if he couldn't hit those moves, he was unbearable to be around. And Flair supposedly tried to talk to him and said, brother, sometimes you got to learn to switch it up, you know, move on the fly, that kind of thing, you know, not to get too behind the scenes here, kids, but and said that Bret wasn't having it. He had to hit that certain pattern every single time. Did you find yourself getting into a rhythm where you had to, I have to do this and this and this and this, or did you just sort of go with the flow?
Well, I mean, I guess we all kind of have signature moves. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And you know, you want to try to hit those, you know, because that's what people remember those moves. Like, you know, I had 5 moves that I tried to do every match, but they didn't have to come in the same sequence. You know, because I don't want the fans to be able to know when I'm going to hit it. I want it to come out of nowhere.
Right.
So I never did get in the habit of doing, you know, sequence moves like Bret Hart does, or a lot of guys these days. But you know, it's just a different style, Tom, than what we grew up watching.
So you had the Viper Bomb, obviously, was your finish most of the time.
Yeah.
You had the clothesline off the top rope.
I never really called that anything. All right, so you remember like the guy would hit the turnbuckle, chest first, stagger back. I would pick him up, spin him, and drop him on his back beside me.
Yes.
Yeah, that's called the Viper Strike.
Viper Strike. Why didn't I remember that?
Yeah. And then sometimes I'd catch them in the cross body, spin them around, and lay down beside them. That's the Darkness Falls.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. So that's just some of Viper's signature moves. You know,
Jeff Cobb.
Go ahead.
I was going to say Jeff Cobb has a move similar to what you just described. He calls the Tour of the Islands, where he catches you. It looks like a front slam, and he starts one way and he spins his whole body around, and bam! I mean, it's a great looking move.
Yeah. What's up, Dylan Gosnell? I see you, buddy.
We've got a David Griffiths watches from down under. He watches the main event almost every Friday. So, yes, sir. Thanks for hanging out, David. We appreciate you.
Well, I forgot about the Viper driver, Chris.
There you go. So, yeah, man. And you know, when I brought up Flair's name, I did so with the caveat that older fans may not agree with me, younger fans may not agree either. As you said, and I think a couple of shows ago, we're all a little jaded by what we grew up watching. So to us, that's the best wrestling. Like, people go on and on about the Attitude Era like it's the most amazing thing ever. And I'm like, it was okay. Like, I just didn't, you know, every single promo, The Rock is talking about a monkey's private parts. Every single promo.
Yeah.
And after a while, it's like, oh, I remember watching The Rock during that time and going, oh my God, stop. I can't take it anymore. Like, I'd hit mute a lot of times.
I'd hit the button to jump back over to WCW.
I mean, I'm just saying, and I got mad respect for The Rock too, but like after a while, it's like, even as a younger man, I was like, man, toilet humor is not doing anything for me. I don't care about this. Why am I hearing this? This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I'm going to throw some, go ahead and get this thing going here, brother. You can't talk about world champions without talking about Harley Race.
Oh, absolutely not. I was thinking that when you was talking about, you know, the era of wrestling we grew up watching, you know, man, you think about how big Harley Race was in his day, and for him to give Flair the rub and you know, let Flair he passed the torch on to Flair, and you know, listen to Flair talk about Harley Race, the respect he had for him, you know, and the things that Harley Race did for the business.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, wrestling just didn't have a lot of TV time back then. So unless you were at the shows, you didn't really know who Harley Race was.
And Harley was a man's man too.
Oh yeah.
Like a man's man, dude. And the thing I liked about Harley is when he talked down here, he stayed real low.
Yeah.
And he never had to yell. He didn't have to shout. Didn't have to scream. But he was scary, man. Like, you could tell this guy, if he was in a bar fight, he wouldn't need any help. Like, they would need help because he would probably take them all out.
Kind of, you know, Ole Anderson was the same way.
Very true.
You know, Ole, he never had to get loud or excited, or, you know, he just had that nice deep voice, and he would point that finger at you, and, you know, he looked like your dad, man. You know, I mean, for me, you know what I'm saying? I mean, I'm a kid watching it. That's my dad on TV. You know, it was cool, man.
Yeah, he the way you said that, he was a man like that. Yeah. Like it's another debate for another show, but there's always been a debate for years. Like, what happened to the men? Where's the men in the pro wrestling business? Like,
yeah.
And all due respect to the new generation, I have no problem with a lot of them, but like, where's the men? Like, where's the guys like Harley Race? Like, there's a man. Show me another man. You know?
Yeah. Black Bart. What happened to Black Bart?
Black Bart. What did happen to Black Bart? Did Bart pass away, or is he with? Is he still with?
I have no idea, brother. I have no idea.
I followed him on Facebook for a while. I think he ended up having some health problems. But yeah, Ron Bass.
Dude. Oh yeah, dude. Think about it, Tom. Back in those days, man. I mean, the guys that were ripped up and chiseled up, they were few and far between.
Yeah.
Everybody was average looking.
Yeah.
And then of course the Road Warriors hit the scene, and Nikita Koloff hits the scene, and Sting hits the scene, and they've all got these bodies, and then the newer era starts modeling after that. So now it becomes where everybody, it's really weird for me to see. I don't know the guy's name. I've caught SmackDown a couple times and seen him, and he's a big obese guy. Got the crap beat out of him this past Friday night.
You're talking about Otis.
Otis, yeah. I'm surprised WWE's even doing something with him.
Well, yeah, yes and no. I think yes, because it's WWE and they never like fat guys. I mean,
right. That's what I'm saying.
We see what Joe's doing. Joe's calling matches now. And I'm like, is that Joe's call or is that them? Like, I don't know. But honestly, in my opinion, I think a lot of it is just to poke fun at him.
Yeah.
I don't think it's about poking fun with him. I think it's about poking fun at him. I think that Vince gets a look at somebody like that and says, we can have some fun with this guy, pal. Let's just put him out there and make him look ridiculous, which he does. I mean, but dude, I kind of liken what you said to Major League Baseball. Because when we were kids, most pitchers were fat, out of shape. A lot of the players just had regular bodies.
Yeah.
And they were like the best players in the world at that time.
Right.
But then these guys started hitting the weight room. And it's like all of a sudden they started bulking up. And you're like, what? And so now it's the norm for these guys to have muscle tone and stuff. And I'm like, God, it's so different how things change, man.
Yeah, it is, dude. And it's unfortunately, Tom, that was probably one of my biggest flaws, man, was I just never was a gym rat. I mean, and I really believe, I had a couple opportunities, dude. I've worked out in WWE ring.
Right.
And I truly believe my appearance is why I never got an opportunity. I truly believe that because, I mean, dude, I got nothing but compliments about my work from so.
You had a knack for it. I think everybody that knew you at the time, especially when you were just breaking in, could tell you had an aptitude for it. You had the look right away. You already had the look, and then all you had to do was learn. And then once you started learning, you could tell. I mean, and you've trained plenty of guys in your time. Either you get it or you don't.
Right. Yeah.
And some guys really want to get it, and they really want it, and you're shaking your head behind the curtain, going, they can't pick it up. Like they really want it, but they just can't. It's nothing against them. Their heart's in it, but they just can't make all the pieces fit.
Just don't visualize how to make it come together.
Right. Josh says, hello. What's up, my friend? Thanks for hanging out.
What's up, Josh? How you doing, buddy?
Dylan says, Ric Flair told a story about Harley Race. He'd walk into a pool halls as champion, knock everyone's quarters off the table and say, I got winner. Because Harley Race was the real deal. That's good stuff.
Yeah, I've heard Flair tell that story.
Shane, what's up, brother? I got Bruno coming here. I got him on the way.
Absolutely.
We're gonna get there. In fact, he may. Where is Bruno? I got his name here somewhere. Here we go. So here is, and it's not a rant because I don't want to rant about it, but the comment that I will make about Bruno is that I grew up in the South. I didn't grow up in New York. I didn't grow up in Jersey. I didn't grow up in Philadelphia. Bruno was not my world champion.
No.
Now, had I grew up in New York, maybe I'd feel differently about Flair. But dude, when and I was never exposed to Bruno's work growing up. I never knew. By the time I was old enough to know who he was through the After magazines, I started reading his name, like, who's this guy? Then I saw a tape of his matches. I'm like, that's the world champion? And, it was brawling and forearms and just going after him. And it wasn't technical. It wasn't fluid. It just felt like a brawl to me.
Yeah.
No disrespect,
He was just a big burly guy, man. And I'm like you, Tom. I wasn't exposed. I never watched WWF or WWF as a kid.
Yeah.
I would catch they did that Saturday morning thing for a while. They had the WWF cartoon. It was Hogan, and that I watched as a kid. But as far as the wrestling part, man, I was a WCW NWA guy. I grew up in the South, so I didn't watch Northern wrestling, and Bruno was like you said, the Northern champ.
Yeah, so honestly, that's kind of colored my opinion on this guy for years, and I'm sure it's not fair. And one day I will commit to watching some Bruno matches, just to get a feel for what he was all about. Because not for nothing, dude, this guy sold out the Garden.
Oh yeah, people loved him. People loved him. That's for sure.
More than any other act, I think, in the history of the Garden, including the world's biggest bands, the world's biggest comedians, entertainers. I think he outsold all of them. Like, that's insane. Over 2,000 days combined as world champion. Unbelievable. Yeah, 2,803 days of title reign.
Wow.
That was one. Was that one title? I think that was one title reign. They gave him that belt and just basically never took it away. So insane, man.
Knowing the business the way we know it, wonder why, Tom. Was he that good, or did they just not have anybody better than him at the time?
I think maybe a little bit of both. Once you see where the dollar signs are, why in the world would you change it?
It was but he wasn't like a big flashy flamboyant guy either. He wasn't a Hulk Hogan or a Flair.
He wasn't.
Or I don't know.
But he consistently drew. Every time. Did. And a lot of it, I'm sure, had to do with the time period. His background. This guy made it through the war, for God's sake. Got out of Nazi Germany alive. The guy's backstory is pretty intense, man. So Bruno was a survivor for sure. And I've never had any level of dislike toward him. And I respect everything he's ever done. But
good night, Paul.
At the same time, he's, like I said, I'm just not that familiar with him. Not as familiar as I want to be, for sure.
Me neither.
So you mentioned.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, you mentioned this guy earlier, so I thought I'd put Hogan's name up.
Pop him up there.
And let's get some hot takes from the gallery here, because I'm sure some people have some hot takes.
I am not a Hogan fan. Never was, Tom.
Yeah, I'm not either, if I'm being honest. I had to put him up here because he was a generation's world champion.
Oh, absolutely.
And talk about packing the houses and selling out every seat. Hogan did that. And, I will give credit where credit's due. Did Hogan do it by himself? No. He had a cast of characters around him that oftentimes propped him up. When you've got Roddy Piper to work all the time, you're probably going to be okay.
Absolutely.
And I don't know, maybe that's not fair either, but Hogan wasn't my champion. And when Dusty and Rick would cut promos on the paper champion up north, we all knew who he was talking about.
Yes, sir. I love it.
I remember calling friends of mine at the time saying, Did you hear what Rick said just now? It's awesome. So, yeah, we all knew.
Yeah.
Shane says he was never a mainstream world champion, but superstar Bill Dundee was a champion and could wrestle anybody. Bill was very good.
Man, I loved watching Bill Dundee wrestle, man. It's
Yeah.
just unfortunately he never got any length of time into bigger companies. Well, he did with
You're right.
WWF, I guess, a little bit.
Yeah. He wasn't a big guy. He wasn't tall,
No.
but he was extremely smart. He was good. He was talented. He was a booker for a long, long time. And I didn't know any of his work in Memphis. And when he got to the NWA, got to Crockett, that's when I knew who he was.
Right.
It wasn't until later I started checking out his background.
That Joker come off the top rope with that leg drop, though.
He always had tights and cowboy boots, too.
Yeah.
Dylan says one thing people bring up about Hogan that I can agree with is their style was build up a guy and have him challenge and lose to Hogan one time, slide him back down the card. Well, Dylan, all they were doing was feeding challengers to him. It was a feeder system in that company. And you could feed Roddy to him and then drop Roddy, and it wouldn't really kill him. I mean, because he was Roddy Piper, and the next match he wrestled, you knew it was going to be good because he was Roddy Piper. But if we're talking about the heel of the week, then you're talking King Kong Bundy, Pollendorf. No disrespect to those guys, but you know, that's all they were doing. And honestly, a lot of the comparisons between Cena and Hogan, Gary, I think you'll agree with this, was that Cena was set up in the same fashion. He was the good guy, top champion, and then there was all these one-hit wonders as challengers.
Feeder fish is what I call them. Feeder fish.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. You know, mid-card guys at best, and they give them a little bit of a pop by putting them in the ring with the world champ. Mm-hmm. You know, it gets them over, makes their mid-card status bigger than it really was.
Yep.
And then they can do stuff with them on the mid-card status. They can sell T-shirts and sell gimmicks and do that kind of stuff. But they use Cena to get them there.
Very true. And, you know, people can say what they want to about the Nexus. The Nexus, this is off topic, but Nexus was the hottest thing in the business at that time. And, you know, I don't know why the decision was made to put a stop to it. But all I know was in the end, the only thing it was there for was to just, you know, make Cena the hero again. I'm like,
right.
This is how you end it? This is how you end it? Like what? So that was disappointing. And I like John, and I don't know how much of that was John or how much of it was the company. Maybe it was a little bit of both. I don't know. I know we can't talk about world champions without mentioning this guy because, you know, there's only ever going to be one Jimi Hendrix. Like a lot of really talented guitar players have come along since Jimmy. A lot of guys will never forget. A lot of guys, you might have their CDs in your car right now or on your iPod or whatever. Great. But there's ever only going to be one Jimmy. There's a lot of wrestlers come along since Dusty, but there's only ever going to be one Dusty Rhodes. Right. That's it. You know what I mean?
Hey, dude, and I can never consider his run in WWF as part of his career.
No.
That was horrible, dude.
Wretched.
Wretched.
Even Cena, when they were talking about interviewing them about Dusty, I think for Dusty's DVD, and even Cena said when he saw the polka dots, he's like, "That's not the Dusty Rhodes I know. It's not the Dusty Rhodes I grew up watching. What's this?"
Right.
And I'm like, when that comes from your poster boy, what's that tell you?
Dude, do you remember when he had like this black lady that valeted him?
Sapphire.
Was that her name? Sapphire? Yeah.
Sapphire was a fan. And I don't know, I can't remember what city it was, but I think she followed them from one town to the next, and they saw her in the crowd. And they just picked her out of the crowd, put her in the show.
That's crazy.
Yeah, dude. I don't even know that she actually knew anybody behind the scenes. I mean, I could be wrong, but I think the story was she was just a fan. I mean,
but she was with him for a while.
Yeah, for a while. She turned on him too and went with Ted DiBiase, I think.
Ted DiBiase, yeah.
And through no fault of his own, because Ted was great in the ring. If people out there watching don't know Ted's work in Mid-South, they're missing out because, oh, my God.
Yeah.
But through no fault of his own, Ted kind of became bargain basement Ric Flair in the WWE. in my opinion. I mean, it's almost like they took the character of the Nature Boy and wanted to make it a cartoon. They said, well, we'll just call him the $1 Million Man. What? And I don't know. It always felt like a really, really bad impression of Ric Flair to me. Maybe I'm wrong.
You know, I can see why you would say that, but yeah, I don't know, man. Ted was great. You're right. His Mid-South stuff was amazing. I don't know. The whole gimmick. His wrestling skill was great, but I'm like you. It was like a cheap rip-off of Flair.
Dude, that night he worked Flair, and I thought he was going to bleed to death because it was bad. It was like bad. But he was the conquering hero, man, and the fans were behind him. And it's like, he's going to win the title. Of course he didn't, but I still maintain that Ted should have had an NWA World title run. I think he would have been top-notch champion. Alma chimes in with her pick for an NWA World Champion, Gino Hernandez. Gino had such a bright future. Gino gone way too soon, but Gino had a ton of issues and a ton of problems and a ton of demons that got the better of him. And it's a shame because he was so good in the ring, dude. Gino Hernandez was so good.
Who are we talking about?
Gino Hernandez was in world-class championship wrestling with the Von Erich family.
Okay.
Yeah, Gino. Dude, look up some of Gino's stuff, man.
I will.
As a wrestler, you'll appreciate him. He was very good. And just one of those guys that, like we said before, it seemed to click really early for him. And, yeah, I agree with Alma. His upside was tremendous. But Gino was into some bad stuff, kids. And, not good at all. But, yeah, see, so one more thing about Dusty here. I could spend all day on Dusty. But Dusty's one of those guys that didn't need a belt.
No. He had so much charisma. His promos, man. I mean, dude, yeah, back in the day when we used to do legit promo classes, we watched Dusty promos all the time.
Oh, he's so good.
I mean, yeah, it's classic stuff.
I knew it. Well, I was telling the folks when we went live here tonight that you had picked a topic for tonight's episode. So in the time that I talked to you, I thought I watched 3 world title matches to kind of prep. I had to watch, and I tried to take them from different decades so I could get kind of a different feel. I watched New Japan, which their world title is called the IWGP Heavyweight Championship. That is their main world title. So I watched a match from February 12, 2012. It was the first time that Kazuchika Okada defeated Hiroshi Tanahashi. I mean, just a great match. It was Okada's coming out party as the new face of the company, right? So I watched that one. I had to watch Goldberg versus Hogan from July 6, 98 in the Georgia Dome. They gave it away for free on Nitro, but I had to watch it because I wanted to get a different feel for a different world title match. But then I had to watch July 26, 1986, Dusty versus Rick, Great American Bash in the Steel Cage. Awesome.
Classic.
I've seen that match so many times. I think I know every sequence of the match as it happens.
Yeah, I can about call it. Yeah, I can about tell if I'm sitting there watching it with somebody, I can tell them what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And dude, I'll tell you, I mean, there's another match that's like that for me, and well, actually 2. And I'm a huge Shawn Michaels fan.
Oh yeah.
I think Shawn Michaels is a real close number 2, in my opinion. But the match him and Flair did at WrestleMania, when Shawn Michaels looked at Flair and said, "I'm sorry, I love you," and Super Kick, dude, that match, I got goosebumps right now. The hair on my arms is standing up. I mean, that was one of Flair's greatest performances, man, and he's 55, 56 years old.
Yeah.
And then when Shawn Michaels and Undertaker did it at WrestleMania, oh my God, dude! I mean,
which match, the first or the second? They're both awesome.
The one, He tombstoned that Joker like 4 or 5 different times.
Yeah, you're right.
I think that's the second one maybe.
I think so. It's crazy.
But yeah, dude, oh my God, that match was just phenomenal. Phenomenal.
And that's what made it exciting for us as kids, because you would have Dusty and Rick who knew they could tear it up, who knew they could steal the show no matter where they were, no matter what continent they were on, no matter what title it was. They knew they could do it from here to Germany to Europe to South Africa, wherever they ran. They knew they were going to kill it. Like, that's what Taker knew, Shawn knew, those guys knew. Hey, we don't have to talk about it. Let's just go out there and steal the show. Let's give them something they'll never forget.
Absolutely.
I mean, I think a lot of that's lost today. I hate to be that guy. I don't think it's completely lost. And it's not fair maybe to make that assessment during the COVID era, because there's no crowds. I mean, hardly any crowds anywhere. So, but, at the same time, man, I do think that's lost. It's lost sometimes, like on today's generation. Like, don't worry about the flash. Don't worry about the pizzazz. Just go have the best match of the night.
Man, when it's whether I was a curtain jerk or the main event, my goal was to steal the show. If I went out as a curtain jerk match, everybody on the rest of that card better step up, because I'm going to set the pace. I promise you that.
Absolutely.
And, so many guys, I looked at it like this, man. If the promoter came to me and said, "Hey, Viper, we want to start the show with you," that was an honor for me. I get to set the pace for the night. Then I get to come back and watch the rest of the show. I'm done. So many guys are insulted by being asked to curtain jerk.
I've never understood that.
Yeah, I don't get that either.
Yeah.
Hey, dude, Shane Odom had a really – I know you got this name on your list.
Oh, yeah. Where was he? Terry Funk.
Yeah.
Terry's not on my list, but I was going to talk about him.
Yeah.
Terry's one of those guys that managed to reinvent himself and managed to have
over.
Yeah. He had a whole different career, like a lot like Jericho, where it's like you saw Jericho as being this one thing, and then you turn around, you're like, what's he doing? What's this? Like, he completely changed. But Chris has done it probably more and better than anybody else ever has. I mean, Taker did it a couple of times, but Terry did it, and it's like Terry prolonged his career. Terry could have faded away and been considered one of those old NWA guys. But Terry could see, well, look, I don't want to just disappear. I've still got more to offer, and I could teach these guys something too.
Absolutely.
I mean, he went to ECW and taught them.
I loved watching Terry Funk, man. He was so unorthodox. He was crazy. And
gave Flair that pile driver on that wooden table that didn't break.
I was just about to talk about that. Him and Flair had some great matches, man. Great matches. And that's the kind of talent Flair was. He could take a talent like Terry Funk and bring the best out of him.
Yeah.
And make him look better than he ever looks, man. Dude, those are ring generals.
Absolutely. Great way to put it. Let's see. I can't talk about just the two big companies. We got to talk about 4-time AWA World Heavyweight Champion Nick Bockwin.
Absolutely. And, there again, I didn't have access to a lot of AWA wrestling. There was a lot of times I come home from school in the afternoons, and I think like at 5 o'clock, AWA came on ESPN or something. I would catch it sometimes. I seen the Freebirds. That's kind of where I seen the Freebirds for the first time, was on AWA wrestling, and then Bockwinkel and several other ones. And then, I would see them on ESPN, and then, Saturday mornings at 12, you'd start seeing a few of those guys feeding into NWA or Mid-Atlantic Championship or NWWA's what it was, National. What?
Before it was.
Yeah, there used to be two W's, NWWA.
NWWA. I don't know what that was. What was that? Anybody out there know what that was?
I want to say I want to say like they called it Mid-Atlantic Championship, but the skirt on the ring had like the NWA, but there was 2 W's.
I do remember the old green skirt with the NWA logo, and the way they had it fashioned, it looked like 2 W's on there.
Okay, maybe that's what it was, and I always just thought it was 2 W's.
Hey, when I was a kid, I thought that too. Because it looked, like whoever designed that.
And
it's
you're
like
right,
whoever,
it was a green skirt.
Yeah,
you're right.
Remember that terrible WCW logo? It was silver, and the W's came off on the sides like hard angle, and the C was real big. And I'm like, you couldn't even see what it was.
Yeah, it was. It was tough. That was a tough logo.
Yeah, that was like a 14-year-old with a bad computer that designed that for him in his mother's basement and said, "Here's your logo." Whatever they paid for that, they paid way too much because that was terrible. Nick Bockwinkel for me, and we're talking about real men in the business. Nick's one of them.
Yeah,
and he is much in the same way that Flair and Harley was. When Nick wasn't in the ring, you could tell he was a big deal. He looked the part, he dressed the part, he spoke the part, had those sunglasses, had that perfectly styled hair, the sideburns. Right. I mean, just it's the old story of if somebody walked into a room and you didn't know who they were, would you be able to know that there's somebody? And I mean, if Flair entered the room and you didn't know anything about pro wrestling, but he came in his prime, looking the way he looked, you'd be like, well, dude, that's got to be somebody. He must be.
That dude's famous. He's got to be famous.
Yeah, he's got. Yeah, how do I not know who this guy is? Yeah,
yeah, I get it.
I think Nick had that too. He had that air about him of, and a lot of times he wasn't the nice guy in the ring, right? But the way he carried himself, he was all business, like all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So, and he reminds me a lot of Nick Aldis, or Nick Aldis reminds me of him.
Dude, I love watching Aldis, man.
I do too, man. He's so good. He's absolutely, I mean, he took the words world champion like Flair did, and he carries that thing for real. It's not, there's no hokey pokey to that guy. He wears it, looks it, believes it.
Dude, Tom, if there again, this is just my opinion, but any wrestling fan, true wrestling fan like you and I, and these guys that are in the business, in my opinion, I think the NWA world title should be the most prestigious title that's ever been in the business.
It's the oldest one.
Yeah, and the NWA put wrestling on the map.
Yep.
And that would be a huge honor to hold that title. Absolutely. And it's a shame it's not recognized, like it should be.
Absolutely right. Speaking of NWA, and this is before our time, and I don't admittedly know enough of Buddy's work to make a judgment either way, but I know he's a legend, and I know he was the first Nature Boy. I think he was the first. I don't think Buddy took it from somebody, but I could be wrong. That gimmick's been around for a while. And it was actually a Nat King Cole song. Nature Boy was a Nat King Cole song, and I think that's where Buddy got the name from.
Really?
So, yeah. And we all know Flair took it from Buddy and also took the figure 4 from him. But Buddy Rogers was also the first WWF champion because he was NWA World Champion. Lou Thez beat him. And at the time, Toots Mott and Vince McMahon Sr. popped up and said, well, we don't think Thez is going to draw for us. He's not Buddy Rogers. So they split from the NWA, as everybody tended to do. They all split. And that's when Vince Sr. formed the Worldwide Wrestling Federation and just said Buddy was their champion. So Buddy became the first WWF champion.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's what started the ball rolling. And, people don't see it now because it's such a billion-dollar empire. But for years, WWF, dude, they were a territory. That's all they were. They couldn't. Right. It took them a long time to get their feet under them. The NWA was still the hottest game in town, and they were just trying to get what they could. So, I mean, we all know how that story turned out, unfortunately, for a lot of reasons, in my opinion, but it is what it is. I got some trivia for you. And none of you kids watching right now use the Google machine. No cheating. So here is your trivia. It's good stuff. What three men held the NWA and WWF championships? There's only been three. I thought we'd enjoy a little trivia. So no one cheat.
I think I know two.
Okay, hit me.
Flair and Dusty.
No.
Really?
No. Yeah.
Flair's not one of them?
Flair is, but Dusty's not. Dusty wasn't WWF champion.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so Bret Hart. Nope, he never held the NWA. That was WCW.
WCW, yeah. Well, we gave one away just now with Buddy Rogers.
Okay.
So Buddy Rogers was the first. Flair was the second, but there's a third. And it's a good one.
Third.
Good guess, Dylan, but no, Bob Backlund did not do it. No, Eric, Hogan was never NWA World Heavyweight Champion. Hogan was WCW World Champion, but not NWA World Champion. You want me to give it to you?
Kerry Von Erich.
That's a good guess, but no. He was never WWF Champion.
No, he never was. Texas Tornado, never.
The phenomenal AJ Styles. Yes, sir.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, so see, I'm thinking old school NWA.
I get it. Yeah.
I wasn't thinking new school NWA. That's awesome, dude.
Yeah, because he had it when they were affiliated with TNA, and he was, I think when the TNA brand hit, I don't think he was the first guy that had it, or like their guy to have it, but he did have it. I don't know how many times he had it. So yeah, pretty cool stuff. So, we could talk a little bit about the new school, and this isn't exactly new school. This is, Attitude Era. I mean, we've got Stone Cold Steve Austin. We've got Sting. We've got The Undertaker. Different champions for a different vibe, for a different era, for a different generation. And Stone Cold gets all the credit in the world, and he should. Just as Hogan gets all the credit in the world, and he should. Austin, I can't say he brought the company back from the dead, but he, just imagine what would have happened had Austin not struck gold. What if that never had happened?
Yeah, I mean, because, dude, he wasn't really hitting it. I mean, doing the whole, before he become Stone Cold and cut the whole Stone Cold 316, Austin 316. Before he did that, he wasn't really, I mean, he was just mid-card at best. And then all of a sudden, boom. That one promo, brother, that's all it took.
You're right. He, and the funny thing is when he left WCW, they fired him. He went to ECW for a very short time. And he cut some amazing promos in ECW because Paul Heyman.
I remember that. I remember.
Paul just said, because Paul tells the story of he called Steve at home. And he had history with Steve, right? But he tells the story of he called Steve at home, and Steve's impulsive. What are you doing? And Steve's like, stay at home, drink a beer, son. He's all, like that. And he's like, well, he said, tell me about what's going on. So he told him he got fired. Bischoff, he's like, well, they fired me, son. He's getting all mad and stuff. He's like, well, you want to talk about it? He's like, well, how am I going to do that? I'm sitting home on my couch. He's like, I got a TV show. You got something to talk about. How about you come on my TV show and talk about it? So we did. And he cut those promos. They're magic. And they're like the beginning of the Stone Cold character. He gets to WWF And suddenly they take the mic out of his hand and give it to DiBiase and say, "Don't let this guy talk." And I'm like, what?
And he's like DiBiase's bodyguard or something, right?
Yes, it was terrible. The $1 Million Champion. What are we talking about right now? So, I mean, to be honest, that thing almost didn't work. I mean, they almost torpedoed it before he even get started.
Yeah.
And they gave him a list of names that he could call himself. And they're terrible. I think one of them was like Ice Pick or something. And it was, God, I went over this on an episode of the 6M podcast, and there was a list of names, and I can't remember any of them now, but they're freaking terrible. So,
dude, yeah.
He came up with the whole Stone Cold thing himself. Good on him. Who did Vince McMahon use to test the dog food segments before?
I know.
I don't know that. Who did? Himself?
Crucifix.
Shut up. Really?
Yeah.
Nice. Good heavens.
Yeah, he did. Chris did the whole dog food thing before Roman ever did.
Wow. That's messed up. What's the story behind that?
Tell him, Chris.
Yeah, you got to hit me with that. Chris, I might have to have you back on the show if you're up for it. Dealing with a hot take, a great wrestler, but usually a surprisingly lackluster world champion. I can't say lackluster about anything with Undertaker. I mean, you have your opinion. That's all good. I mean, I don't know. Taker, to me, another guy that he didn't need the title. Let's call it for what it is.
His gimmick. Eric Burns said it best. Austin sold merch, but Taker did too. I mean, Taker and Austin was selling the devil out of some merch, boy.
Oh yeah. Sounds good, Chris. Yeah, man. Hey, let's set it up, brother. Contact me. And just so you kids know, we're getting along right now, but all that could change at a minute's notice. Drop the hat, just like that, because someone's moody. It's not me.
He's just trying to get on your podcast, right?
Is that what it is? All right.
Yeah.
That's all right. So yeah, man, again, it's a new, like, talking about different eras and stuff, and what I miss, I'm clicking around.
No, Chris, he said, I don't like that.
Look at that. Don't pull punches. So yeah, people are talking about selling merch. No one sold merch the way Stone Cold did.
No.
And, all that stuff about Stone Cold took his ball and went home and all that crap. When he left, it heavily impacted that company. Like, that was no small thing.
No, that was huge.
And I remember there was all this stuff online that night going into Raw. And I remember talking to a friend of mine. I'm like, dude, I don't think he's going to be there. And then they go live, and Vince says what he says. Rock comes out and says that Austin took his ball and went home. And it was real easy to sit there and go, well, heck with that guy. He split. Then you heard the story, and you're like, yeah, I kind of see why he split. Now, in hindsight, he says he wishes he hadn't. He had never done it. But that's just to prove a point that, when he left, because he was gone for, how long was he gone till they talked him into coming back? It was a while, wasn't it?
Yeah, he was gone. It was close to a year, wasn't it? Maybe longer than that.
Yeah, it really hurt him. I feel like me and Chris would get along just from our share of Love the Triple Threat in ECW. Brother, if you think you can get along with Chris Fix, good luck to you, my friend. He's got a particular personality. I'm just saying. Steamboat versus Flair. Ricky Steamboat won the NWA title. That was a great match. They had what a lot of people consider to be the three greatest matches, the three greatest sequence of matches of any world title in history. I mean,
didn't Steamboat and Flair do the first 60-minute match? Or back then, I mean, it wasn't a gimmick. I mean, they were just doing 60-minute time limits, and they went the full 60 minutes.
Well, they went. Now, Flair will tell you that the best matches he and Ricky wrestled were never on TV. They were never filmed. They were never taped.
Right.
that they went 1 hour matches all the time. They would go 1 hour Broadway all the time on the road at house shows and in front of a couple thousand fans. And that was it. But they did it all the time. So it just depends on what we're talking about. But yeah, those two guys, the chemistry between, like, Sean and Brett had chemistry. I mean, Rick and Ricky, my God, insane. Yes. I mean, and those were the days, man. I never get tired of talking about the old days.
It's all as a worker, it's always nice to have that chemistry with somebody. I mean, man, there were guys that I worked over the years that great talent. We just didn't click well in the ring. Our styles were different. We didn't vibe well. Yeah. And then there were guys that, you just clicked with and you wanted to have matches with those guys because everything just flowed and was smooth. And I don't know, man, but that's the way Flair and Steamboat was. Them jokers had a chemistry that was unreal.
Chris Vick says John Matthews is the reason HBK lost his smile. Oh, he's taking a shot. How you feel about that?
John Matthews, this kid's going to be the future of HVW. You should see this kid out here 3 nights a week in this ring, working his tail off.
It made me chuckle, Chris. I'm not going to lie. So, I like John. Don't get me wrong. Yeah, man. Like I said, I love talking about the old days. And I watched the product today. It's different. I mean, they trade titles back and forth in Vince McMahon's company so often, it's crazy. If we're being fair about it and calling it right down the middle, I mean, I would have to say, if we're talking about today's genre, today's crop of world champions, I mean, dude, John Moxley's got to be up there. I mean, he's had the belt since February, I think. And I mean, dude, first of all,
I dig the whole thing they're doing with him.
Oh my God. His promos are off the charts, dude. Like, I don't know how you get better. Like, it's not that he was never good, but he gets better every time.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
And his promos in WWE were some of the worst stuff I've ever heard because they were force feeding him lines and handing him a sheet of paper and I just can't wrap my head around that. But dude, he's blossomed big time. So
yeah, he's definitely come into his own. That's for sure. Man, I like this Shane Odom guy. You can tell this fella's a wrestling fan. He's got some great comments.
Oh, dude, Shane watches. He's a regular fan of the Main Event.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, dude, he watches almost every Friday. And Shane, a lot of time we'll be talking about New Japan. Everybody else is trying to talk about WWE. So we had to steer the conversation back to what everybody else wants to talk about. So, but yeah, I mean, and honestly, we'll call it like it is as well for Vince's company. Roman Reigns is absolutely on fire right now. That guy, I mean, and a lot of that is thanks to Paul Heyman because he's so freaking good. But dude, Roman has never looked better. He's never sounded better. He's finally found his niche. And this is years after they made him the face of the company. He didn't become it. They made him that way.
Right.
And now he's filling his shoes. He's filling the shoes that were there for him to fill. You know what I mean?
Yes, man. Yes, man. yes,
that
sir,
worked.
I do. And it's my daughter texted me at the same time. But brother, it's there's so much. Paul Heyman has made so many guys in this business.
Very true.
Dude, I don't know the guys that came out of ECW and went on to do bigger things in WCW and WWE. I mean, Paul Heyman, he took an indie company and created superstars.
Yeah.
Kind of just like AEW's done, really. I mean, dude, I'd never heard of the Butcher and the Blade before, ever, until I watched that show. And they pushing these guys, man, and I like it. I like the fact that they're pushing them.
Dude, talk about real men. Butcher's a real man. Butcher looks like freaking Harley Race, man.
Yeah.
So
dude, I'm digging AEW, Tom. I really am, dude.
I am too, and they do a lot of hocus pocus over there that I don't care for, but it's 2020. You got to be able to take some of that stuff, and I don't want to do a podcast and call people out by name, but I'll tell you off the air. But I just watched a tag team match on that show, and it's two young kids, and I'm like, there was so much stuff in that match that I'm just from where I'm sitting.
Right.
I'm like, oh God. Now, if you're in the crowd, you go, oh, this is exciting. But for me, I'm like, nah.
Yeah, it's too much.
It's too much. No psychology at all. It was, I
big
never
move after big move and not make any sense. And
I never understood the whole concept of the man is in front of you, but you have to run this way to come hit him with the move. I'm like, he's right in front of you. Grab a headlock. What are you doing? Why you got to run? He's not away from you. He's physically beside you. Or
Dylan, who's that sound like?
I'm sorry. It's the truth. And the stuff when the two guys, and this happens in every company now because it's become the norm, when the guy will run past you and you'll slap him on the back as he runs past you.
It's called a lucha pass. That's a legit move. They do it Lucha Libre all the time. Watch AAA or CMLL. They do it all the time.
Well, they may do it all the time, but they also have 50-year-old dudes with pot bellies in the ring.
Yeah, you're right. And
again, from my perspective, why would I let the guy that I'm trying to beat run past me now, and I could touch him on the back and go, ha ha, but I couldn't grab him by the hair of the head and yank him down to the mat. Like, what? That kind of crap.
Man, look, some of my trainees, I've gave them a little freedom to put some spots together, and they've thrown, John Matthews likes to do the lucha pass. I get why they do it, but I'm like you. It don't make no sense, but I understand why they do it. But it kills the psychology. It kills the psychology. He
and I debated that at I think it was at Resurrected, and he thought he won the debate. He didn't win. I told him, I said, dude, if he's in front of you, why would you let him run past? Like, dude, imagine watching an MMA fight. And imagine the guy just runs away from you,
bounces off the cage, and comes charging back at you.
Yeah, like, and then like if he's right in front of you, and why wouldn't you just go for a takedown? It makes, I don't know. We'll be here all night if I keep up with this stuff. It's how I feel. I'm not going to change it. Let's see. Shane says, I hope HVW will be making new stars to grow up on Memphis wrestling. And I grew up on Memphis wrestling. I saw some of the before. Hey, stay tuned, man.
Yes, sir, brother. Stay tuned for sure. Because
we already did make one that went on to the big time for sure. And you know him as you used to know him as Dash Wilder. He's now Cash Wheeler of FTR. So there you go.
HVW fans known him as Steven the Fever Walters.
Because he'd get up on the turnbuckle and it would be Steven, the Fever, and then Walters. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
Well, we are upon the hour here.
Yes, sir. So, sorry I was late getting in, Tom.
It's all good, man. No worries. Good to get back on track again. It was nice to have a break last week. I'm not going to lie, because I podcast a lot. But
yes, you do.
Honestly, though, it's good to get back on it tonight. So this is cool.
Yeah.
So we'll hit them with one final update. We don't really have anything new to talk about here tonight, kids. We are patiently waiting with our fingers crossed that January 30th is going to become a for sure etched in stone event. However, we cannot say that because we do not know. As we've said before, we could throw that ring up in a cornfield somewhere and call it wrestling, but that's not what we want to do. And if a company wants to do that, go with God. But that's not what we want for HVW. So I know you're excited to get back to it. And like I said, I know you feel the same. I am hopeful. I got my fingers crossed.
Man, I mean, it's as of right now, I think we're good. You know, who knows what our wonderful Governor Roy Cooper's going to do over the next few weeks or whatever. But,
right.
I mean, as of right now, I think we're going to be okay. As long as nothing changes or goes back, takes us back a step.
There you go. Well, kids, that's all we got for you. We want to say thank you to everybody who tuned in live, or if you tuned in after the fact, we want to let you know the HVW official podcast. All the episodes are available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, which is a new platform for us. They're blowing up over there. This Amazon thing's a hit, dude. I think they're going to go somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
So,
you think?
Yeah. It's catching on. It's catching on.
Dude, they just put one of them new Amazon distribution centers on Airport Road by my work. Dude, I bet you they got 500 vans that are painted gray with the Amazon logo on the side of them. And you see them all over town all the time.
Dude, if they're bringing jobs to town, that's a great thing.
Absolutely.
I mean, hopefully they're not importing workers from another town. Hopefully they're hiring locally, which is a good thing, you know. We're also on Spotify and YouTube, and I'll plug Tom Clark's Main Event and Tom Clark's 6M podcast before we get off the air. So please be sure to subscribe today to all those great, fine podcasts. You'll never miss an episode. Gary, thanks as always, brother. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir, brother. Thank you for having me.
Yes, sir. We're going to get out of here, folks. Remember to stay tuned to HVW's social media. We'll see you next time, hopefully next week. That's it for us, kids. We're out of here. Everybody have a good night. See you next time.